Hello and welcome to season 2 of Performance People with me, Georgie.
And me, Ben. Our guests this time round have 38 Olympic or Paralympic medals between them, 22 of them gold.
There are countless world records, 16 Everest summits, and the man responsible for some of the greatest inventions of our time.
And alongside them are their closest confidants. They will share what drives these exceptional individuals to their highest heights.
Performance People is free on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. And don't forget, you can also follow us on our Performance People social channels.
Now enjoy this week's episode.
Joining us on today's Performance People are a husband and wife who've overcome huge obstacles to achieve their goals.
Mo Farah is Britain's greatest track athlete with 6 world championships and 4 Olympic gold medals.
While Mo was dominating athletics, though, he was also hiding a distressing secret that he was illegally trafficked to the UK as a child.
Joining Mo is his wife, Lady Tania Farah, the person who has supported him throughout his running career.
Tania was also the catalyst for Mo going public with his true identity and telling the world about who he really is.
These two performance people have proven that with the right attitude and application, there should be no barriers to success.
Running for me was just, it couldn't get any harder than what I've gone through. And at that point, I just kind of just went for it.
It's like an extraordinary ability to overcome anything like I've never seen. And I think if you hadn't gone through the trauma that you went through as a kid, most people wouldn't be able to handle that.
I think this will probably be my last year overall, really being realistic and being honest.
I hope so.
Yeah, hope so. Retire now.
So, Tania, Mo, the last time, Mo, I saw you, I think, was about freakily 12 years ago, something like that. We were on A League of Their Own on Sky. And someone came up with this ridiculous idea that I had to armour up and go up against you on a travelator. Well, I say up against you, I don't really mean up against you. I just had to run alongside you. That's actually even harder. On a travelator at your race pace for the 10,000, which is 13 miles an hour or something ridiculous like that. And I think I lasted about 1.5 seconds. It was sort of abject humiliation for me at my end. But looking back, that was like 12 years ago. And that was before London 2012 and everything that's come since. Do you remember that? Do you remember that moment? You probably don't.
Yeah, I do. I do remember it with John Bishop. And it was, I just remember being on a treadmill and saying, what pace do you run at? And I was like, at this pace, should we try it? And everybody,
I remember it as well.
Everyone fell over.
It was a massive treadmill.
Yeah, it was a massive crash mat, crucially, at the far end, which is what John and I both needed by the end of that.
I need to find that.
Yeah,
I haven't seen it.
Yeah, I think there's a reason why you've not seen it. I've definitely not shown you for a good reason. Exactly, it was pretty humiliating from my perspective. But that was like 12 odd years ago, something like that. And then I got to thinking, was that the show where James Corden came up with the Mobot? Was that?
It wasn't that particular show, but it was one of the shows where, I did League of Their Own and we were just having a chat. And it was way before 2012. And we were just along the panel, Claire Bording, James Corden, Jack Whitehall. And all of us were sitting there and we were like thinking, yeah, Mo, 2012 coming up. If you do win, we need to come up with a celebration for you. I was like, yeah, well. And we're having a chat and that. And then they tell me Usain Bolt does the, around the world. I said, we need to come up with a celebration for you. And they were all just having a chat. And then Claire Bording goes, YMCA, the songs. To do the M and the O. And James Corden just said, okay, that's it. We should call that the Mobot. And I promised them I'll do it. And I'll tell you, first time I did it, people were like, what is he doing? And then after a little while, started winning more. And then did it 2012 and everybody was doing it.
Oh, yeah,
amazing. Was he busy at home, Tania, in the mirror, just sort of practicing it beforehand, just sort of working out exactly how it looked, how it was going to go down?
Yeah, he did it a couple of times and he kept saying to me, I'm going to do it. If I win, I'm going to do it. And I didn't think he would. So I was quite surprised when I saw him actually doing it as well. I was thinking, what is he doing?
So then come the gold medals and everything changes, right? What difference did it make being victorious at London 2012 to your lives, both of your lives?
No, I think our lives did change in a good way. Obviously, Tania had the twins just after 2012 and again having 2 more kids and then having 2 medals and winning London 2012 was huge. again, 2012 was massive in our family and all around.
Yeah, it definitely changed overnight, because we were obviously in London where the Olympics had happened, and he'd won. I mean, after the first gold medal, it sort of blew up a little bit, and suddenly we found that everybody knew who we were. And Mo was still in the village, and I was staying in Teddington with my eldest at the time. And between the first race, the 10K, and then the 5K a week later, it was so overwhelming, the attention, that I found myself not leaving the house because it wasn't over yet for us. He still had another race to go, so we couldn't quite celebrate yet or let go. So I stayed in the house, and I kept as private as possible, in order to shield all of us really from everything until it was over, until he still had, one more job to do. And then we could celebrate. But even then, it was after the 5K, it was even more crazy. And I was still heavily pregnant. So I was trying to take it easy. And it's hard to do that when, your husband's just won 2 gold medals in London. And yeah, but it was all positive. Everyone just was so happy for him and so supportive. And it was amazing. But it just overnight, everything changed.
And of course, I mean, that's enough for any person to deal with, let alone the fact that Mo, just recently, you've obviously made this documentary about called The Real Mo Farah, and you've told the world that all this time there was this, this other past that you haven't been able to share with people until then. And so, this press intrusion, the chat shows, the interviews, the articles, all of that extra interest in you. I mean, how comfortable were you with that, given you knew what you knew?
No, honestly, it was hard for me because, again, as a kid, you've gone through all the stuff, and you've gone through the school, you've gone through the social services to do something, and nothing was ever done. And at that point, it was just one of these things where I go, okay, nothing's ever going to get done. Just go and do what you need to do. Don't let that hold you. And then again, obviously winning 2012 was huge. And overnight, as I said, like, I wasn't just Mo, I was Mo, the Olympic champion who, won in London 2012. And that was huge. And then you get to be on all these shows and everything. And yet, at that point, you just like, well, what do I do? What do I do? It was hard for me. But again, it was just like, I just want to run. I just don't want to do anything else. I just want to do what I do. And again, at that point, we just kind of said, listen, just go and do what you need to do, and just focus on your running. And that's what I did. And whatever that meant, I just kind of went along with it and just say, listen, I don't want any of this. I just want to concentrate on my running and do what I can. But it was difficult. And I knew at some point, obviously having my kids and my family, I knew at some point I will face these things. But it was that point where I didn't want anything in the way of it. I just want to concentrate on my career and continue. And if it meant, you going on the shows, you just made it work, didn't we?
Yeah, just treated it like a job, I guess, and switched off the emotional side of things.
If these things didn't ever happen, would I ever achieve what I have achieved? That's the questions I always ask. Did that make me the man I am? Is that big part of it? Which sometimes even now, we've done a documentary and that's out the way and everything's out. This part of you go, how did I overcome that? Was this part of it? Was this, and then again, seeing my kids, seeing my family, I've always knew at some point, I'll be honest with my kids and tell them what they deserve, because the only reason we kind of did this documentary was seeing my kids and seeing at that age, and couldn't imagine them at that age and gone through what I've gone through. And again,
and is that part of the motivation, Mo? Do you think that's part of the motivation that drove you to the success that you had?
At that point, if I could overcome what I overcome, running for me was just, it couldn't get any harder than what I've gone through. And at that point, I just kind of just went for it. And I didn't feel like anything else other than just go and do what you need to do.
Yeah, for me, there's no doubt in my mind that played a huge part in him being able to go on to do what he did, because I've seen how much he pushes himself physically, mentally, and it's like an extraordinary ability to overcome anything like I've never seen. And I think if you hadn't gone through the trauma that you went through as a kid, most people wouldn't be able to handle that.
And kids themselves are great catalysts for anything, aren't they? I mean, we've got a surrogate son, Fox, who was born in the States, and we've got a daughter who was an IVF baby. And you're like, at some point, we're going to have to sit them down. They're only 6 and 2 at the minute, so we don't have to worry about it just yet. But at some point, we'll sit them down and we'll talk them through that process, and we'll be really honest with them, and we'll have those conversations. And I think when you have got things in your life that you need to at some point tackle, I mean, I don't think we ever don't think about it every day, like in terms of how we're going to have those conversations. And presumably that's sort of, like you say, you can park it, you can put it to the back of your mind for a period of time, but ultimately it is there. It is something that you're going to have to deal with at some point. Is that a similar thing for you guys? Because you obviously knew that you wanted to share this with the children primarily, as opposed to the world. I mean, that must have been the first thing.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think for me, at least, my kids are everything to me, my family. And I've always been big. And the reason why I love my family so much is you want to create that because you never had a family as tight. And my family are a big part of what I do every day. And I try to make them involved in everything I do. And we're very honest with each other. And if someone messes up, one of the kids, you kind of say, okay, come. And then we talk about it. We don't go, I'm not mad at them because they did that, but I just want them to be honest and transparent and just have that bond together, because I think all of us, our kids will make mistakes. They will get things right, but they will get things wrong. But I think it's having that connection with them. And I think without my kids and seeing my kids, I don't think I would have gone through what I've gone through with the documentary. They were a big part of it.
Yeah. And what about the timing of all of that as well? Like, when is ever the right time to have those sorts of conversations? I mean, that's something that we talk about as well. Why did it feel like it was so right to do that before Christmas?
Yeah, it was just honestly, as I said, with not doing with seeing them at the age they are now, like they're 9. And,
they're 10.
Sorry, So when I came to the UK, I was 9.
Don't
does
worry,
that a lot.
I get that wrong as well. It's fine.
Oh my God.
And now they're 10. And just seeing them just kind of thought, this is the right time and the right moment. It just felt right.
Well, I think with the kids, with kids, you just have to judge it by whether you think they're ready to understand and comprehend that every kid's different. And we felt like our girls, certainly our twins, were ready to hear it. They already
asking questions.
Have lots of questions. I think they can put things together themselves. Kids nowadays are able to find stuff out as well on the internet. So they know they've met his family in Somalia, and obviously the family in Somalia are not the family that on paper he has. So they're already seeing the differences. So I felt right to tell them when they're able to understand it. And in terms of the documentary, I mean, I always knew that it was something that Mo needed to address personally anyway, but not during the height of his career. I think that would have disrupted his approach and his attitude towards running if he had opened up that can of worms in the middle of his career. So it felt right at this stage of his career to address it. We didn't know years ago that he would be doing a documentary, but certainly being able to just address the truth and the story, it was something that needed to happen, but not not during the 2012 era. It had to happen towards the end of his career when he was able to deal with it.
I think that's a really good point that you make, isn't it? It's like the distraction piece. It's like, actually, if you're in the middle of a career that you see has longevity, and you can probably relate to this as well, the last thing you need is all that extra distraction and noise around it. And it's like, just park it until you're ready to actually say, no, I've achieved all these great things, and now is the time for this bit. to be talked about or whatever, and the noise that comes with that. So I can completely see the sense in that. It must have been really special though, Mo, taking your boy back to Somaliland, wasn't it?
No, it was very special to taking him there and actually see, where were you born, where you grew up, seeing my family, and actually just him being part of it. And we named him after my name. If Tanya came up, I said, we're going to have a son. And she's like, we should name him Hussein. And I was like, that'd be cool.
Was it also a huge, did it feel like a huge weight lifted?
Relief, yeah.
When you got
it
that
was
done.
a massive relief. It was, because at times, I'll be in the room and getting the girls ready, and then we'll be in the room and I'll be daydreaming because I'm thinking, I was the same age as them. Look what they're doing. What was I doing? And it did have a lot of effect on me. And again, unless you dress it and actually let it out, you're never going to feel better. And for me, it was a way of just being free. And I didn't know how it was going to come across, but it was just a way of just letting it out. And I definitely did feel a lot better. And
I bet the responses have been amazing, haven't they, guys? Bet you've had really positive responses to that documentary.
Yeah.
No, it wasn't massive. And so many people have come back to us and saying, thank you, I've gone through this similar situation. I've gone through here, and with child trafficking, it's huge. And till we actually met up with the right people and gone through it, I didn't even know it existed. But it's something that does exist, and something that, people go through it all the time. But again, and I think by me coming forward and actually letting out and say, I have achieved a lot, but I've also gone through this, people have more warmed to it and gone, oh my God, and coming forward and talking about it, because it does take a lot out of you.
I found it to watch. I found it really heartbreaking in parts, but I also found it hugely inspirational because, like you said, Tanya, earlier, to achieve what you've achieved, given the obstacles you had to jump over to get there, is just even more impressive. So, yeah, I think a lot of people would have that particular take on it. Have you still got questions? Are there still things left unanswered, or do you feel like you're at peace with the whole thing at the minute?
I don't know if I ever be at peace with the whole thing. I'm definitely relieved that a lot of it has been answered, but there's so much more unanswered, and just more of the details, how and why. And it's still got a lot of questions, but I feel like 70% at least?
Yeah, I'd say the questions started before the documentary, and in terms of, I started digging around and asking questions and trying to put things together years ago when I realised and never quite got the answers, and part of the reason that Mo did the documentary was to try and get those answers with the help of the team, and they definitely were able to get more than we had, although there are still some unanswered questions. And so all we can really do is try and make assumptions based on what we do know. And we know as much as I think we'll ever know, because we've exhausted everything in trying to find out the specifics. But I think we know enough that
to make sense.
Yeah.
But again, it's just honestly, at least I know some bits.
What we definitely know is that running gave you this, you obviously have this God-given talent for it, but it also seems to have given you this great outlay of somewhere that you can really sort of escape from everything that was going on during that time. And obviously it gave you this incredible career subsequently. But, how much do you credit running with actually sort of saving your soul and everything that sort of has come since?
Yeah, no, for sure. If it wasn't for running, I don't think I would be here talking to anyone, and I think I'll probably end up going the wrong path, because again, when you've gone through this trauma and as a kid, you just want to go away from it, and that's how a lot of people get into trouble and other stuff. And running did save me, because running was a way of out, a way of being free, and way of for you just keep hurting yourself and keep grafting. And I think that's what I did, over the years, just going, okay, I like the feel of this. And it was just a way of keep pounding and just go through anything. If you've been that, you go through that wall, you go through it, because it was a way of just relief. Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, I try to run very, very poorly, but
Not like Mo.
but it is an
Yeah, but I
amazing
couldn't do what
release,
you do,
isn't it?
could
I
I?
mean, I know you obviously do it.
Go.
You're obviously doing it as a profession, but just as a sport, running's just an amazing feeling of freedom. And we used to live in Hampton Court, so we used to run around Bushy Park, which I know is where you did a lot of your training. But I think my lap time around Bushy Park was probably about 40 minutes, where I don't know, you were probably about 20 minutes. So
That's
that
decent,
just
man.
goes to
Doesn't
show the
matter,
speed
that's
that
the
you
thing.
got.
Over 7 miles, almost 7 miles.
Yeah, running,
So go on.
a lap of Bushy is no joke. So the fact that you can complete a lap, it's better than most people. That's the thing.
Yeah. But
I'll let you into another secret. When we went school, I'm going to call it school shopping, but when we went to look around various schools for our daughter Bellatrix, we popped into one local school and we questioned them immediately on their competitive nature and whether it was all about giving medals to everyone or if they taught them the importance of winning or losing. And we sort of said, obviously, we're on the spectrum of we quite like the idea of, the taking part counts, but actually we quite like the idea of a winning and losing philosophy, so that it sort of teaches them for later in life that you can't win at everything. And that was our sort of take on it. And the teacher said, well, we have a policy here where it's very much about taking part that counts amongst the children. But we do have a sports day whereby the parents can be as competitive as they like and can play for places and medals and whatever else. And we said, okay, well, Ben sort of got a little bit more interested. And then they said the one caveat and problem that we have is that Mo Farah's a parent.
No.
I think
At which point we both went, oh, no, this is no good.
But
we'll
did
not
you
be lining
know
up for that one.
Listen, Tania shared this
he
week.
took part in the parents' race at Sports Day and came second.
Not third.
And the
Running
guy that won
backwards.
it was wearing jeans.
Pair of jeans. And I was like, oh no. And I had my spikes on. I was like, yeah, I'm ready for this.
No. Do you
don't
know,
believe it.
isn't that always the way, though? Whenever we're in a sailing club or anything like that, Ben always is too polite to say no to sort of the dad's race or whatever, where they go out and try their hand sailing alongside him. And invariably, whatever happens and he doesn't end up winning. And then there's this awful bragging.
I don't
No,
know
but
what you're
there's this
talking about.
awful bragging rights culture that goes on then, isn't there? With everybody
Yeah,
else.
I've had
Oh,
him.
I beat
Oh, the dad that
Ainsley on
won
the
dined
laser.
out on it for an entire school year. I
I
mean,
bet.
it didn't
bet
hit
he
the end of it.
Tagging me as well, going, yeah, have some of that.
How did you let that happen, Mo? I mean, for goodness sake.
Yeah.
He's not a sprinter. That's what
must.
it is. The parents' race is always 100 meters, and people just assume Mo can run fast. He can run fast, but what they don't realize
Build the
is
speed.
Yeah, his running fast is sustained running over many laps. So a straight 100-meter sprint, not so much.
Can't sprint.
I'm not buying that. I still think you would take out
Honestly,
most people in a direct 100-meter
Tania will
sprint.
beat me in the sprint finish.
I'll beat Mo over about 50, 60 meters, and then he'll overtake me.
So you two go so far back. So you met at school. So was it kind of a case of like kissing behind the bike sheds? I mean, how did this sort
No.
of relationship happen?
Oh, not at all. Mo's 3 years older than me, so at school he was always three years above me. So I didn't see him as much in classes. It was more like break times, and then after school we went to the same running club, and we lived around the corner. So he lived just a few minutes away from me. So I'd see him a lot, and to be honest, for about I'd say 10 years or more, it was more like, for me anyway, I don't know about you, brother and sister relationship. To me, I saw him as like an older brother. We were really good friends. And it wasn't until later on that he told me he was waiting for the right time. And actually, I remember he did. I think when I was about 15. When I was about 15, he told me that he liked me as more than a friend, and I sort of politely declined. And then we carried on being friends for about another 6-7 more years until I think the time was right. It felt a bit more like it was going to happen. So yeah, we were friends for what 12, 13 years before anything.
Kept in touch as well, so it was kind of just knew. I knew where she lived as well, so
he would
keep an eye on her.
He would randomly just come to my house sometimes. And one time he came back from a training camp overseas, and my grandma was staying with us at the time, and he brought me a gift, something that he'd gotten I think in South Africa. And it was really sweet, and I thanked him and whatnot, and didn't think anything of it. And my grandma said afterwards to my mum, "Oh, he definitely has a crush on her. I can see the sparks. I see the look in his eye," and I just like dismissed it. I didn't want to think of it that way, because to me he was such a good friend. I didn't want to spoil that.
Now 4 kids, spoiler.
Yeah. Subsequently, that didn't work out quite so well, because there's 4 kids later. But Tania, what about this juggle? Because you have this and I have this, and there aren't many people that we can talk to about this that would understand how this works. But this morning, we're lying in bed, and Bellatrix, our daughter, comes and tumbles in, as she does every morning, and sort of gives Ben maximum grief for the fact that he's about to get on another plane to go to another country to compete in another event and won't be back for a good few days. And I mean, it is awful, because I mean, the way she says it is quite amusing, so we have a bit of a giggle about it. But it must be like quite soul destroying for you, and I know that it does hurt sometimes. I mean, you guys must have this an awful lot with your training, Mo, and the amount of time you're away from home. How does that sort of pan out in your household?
I think it's tough. Well, not for me, because I'm in a camp, but with Tania and the kids, and I see them more and more now, because I'm at home a lot more than I was for the last 3 or 4 years, and you can see them. It does affect the kids.
Yeah, a lot, especially when they're young, very young, and they don't understand why he's going away for so long. And Mo's average trip away would be 6 to 8, sometimes 12 weeks, and. When they're so young, 2-3-year-old, they don't understand that. And why? And I obviously tell them he's coming home, he's going away to work. But to them, I think they just see it as he's gone, he's abandoned us. And all of our kids, when they were at that age, had a lot of difficulty, in fact, and they reacted in different ways. One of them would just stop eating for 2 weeks. She just didn't eat, and she would just drink milk but not eat anything, and she got really skinny. And after about 2 to 3 weeks, she would adjust and then start eating again. And so she had that issue. And then our son his emotion was just anger. So he would take it out on me. Whenever Mo left, he was just angry all the time, and he would refuse to do anything. And it was his way of coping. And then one of the other twins would just go quiet and sit in her room on her own. It was really tough, because I couldn't do anything about it. I can't be dad. So as much as I tried to compensate, it was like a huge loss for them. It was like they were grieving whenever he left. And I understand that feeling, because I felt the same. But obviously I can process and deal with it as an adult, and they can't. So it was tough for me, because I had my own loss of him being away, and then I had to carry theirs. And seeing them like that is so hard. I mean, you know what it's like seeing your kids. There's nothing worse than seeing your kids in pain and not being able to do anything about it. So that was definitely the biggest sacrifice, I think, for Mo's career, is the huge time he spent away.
Yeah, Mo, what about your end of it? Like you say, you're in camp, so you're focused and you've got a routine and you know what you've got to do, and you're on a mission, aren't you? You're on a single mission to do what you want to do. But I mean, that's going to pull at your heartstrings as well, right? You don't want to hear Tania on the phone saying you're struggling with any one of your children.
Yeah, no, for sure. And Tania was really good at it. She wouldn't tell me things like little things that's happening for the kids. She only tell me big things that is happening that I needed to know, and she took care of it. And you don't really think about it, because you just go, okay, Tania's there, she's taking care of it, and then I can just concentrate on my training and focus what I need to do. Because as an athlete, to perform at your best, you've got to be able to go put in 120 miles week in, week out, and keep going, and just eat, sleep, and train, and not think about anything else. And that's what it takes to be the best and to win medals. And I could do that, but I needed, everything else to be taken care of. Kids is okay, house is okay, everything else is okay. And at times it was hard, because you know the kids, or your son is on the phone to you, or on FaceTime and you're talking to them and you're like, I miss you, Dad. When are you coming back? And you're like, okay, I'm coming back here. And then you get closer, and then you compete. And then the hardest thing is you not doing as well as what, or the race hasn't gone as well. That's the hardest thing, because you like, I've gone away from here to here. I've been in the camp, everything, and I feel like the race didn't go as well, and I didn't get, should have got more out of it. That's, to me, that's the hardest, because you're like, that should have been.
But that was actually a really a big motivator, because in the Rio Olympics, during the 10,000, before he went to Rio, he'd already gotten 2 gold medals for the twins, and he was going for 2 more this time. And obviously with 2 other kids, he promised Rihanna, our eldest, that he would bring home a gold medal for her. And then our son as well would hopefully get the 2nd gold if he won. And during the 10,000, he fell over in the middle of the race. And he said that the one thing that really pushed him to not just get back up, but to go out and win, was that he promised Rihanna that medal. And it because of all the time we spent away, he didn't want that to all have been wasted. So if anything, the sacrifices also play a big part in motivating him to make it worthwhile.
And not to let them down and just go after it, because at that point when I did go down, I was like, oh my God, race is over. I've been in camp. I've been training for, I'm not going to have another Olympics again. Don't know how my body's going to be to come back to another Olympics. And at that point, I was just like, you've got to get up. And once I got up, I was just kind of just being patient, take it slowly. But a lot of it was like, I didn't want to let Rihanna down. I didn't want to let her down and go home and with nothing and go, sorry, Ree, because she was old enough now to ask questions, and I felt like,
you'd have been in so much trouble.
That is so much pressure to put yourself under.
No,
I know, but again, with my Olympic medals, each one has their own names on it now. I engraved with their names on it and gave one, and I felt like for over the years while I've been in camp and not been around for them as much, that's theirs. That's the least I could do. I have other things that, other medals, but it's theirs. And I was like, okay, it's framed for you. When you're old enough, it's yours. You do what you want with it. And
what's it like when you come home?
Means.
The readjustment bit, because I think that's always really quite tricky for families. When you've definitely been away from home and then you come back, and it's sort of that readjustment.
I don't know what you tell it. It's fine.
It's not fine,
sometimes
it is.
But it's hard because we go and create our worlds and our lives to sort of keep ourselves busy and doing what we're doing, and we've got our own thing going on. As much as you don't want to admit it, we do. We have our own thing going on, and then obviously the kids have too, and they've got parties on a Saturday that we don't want to cancel just because Dad's home and stuff like that. So how do you sort of readjust when you come back home? Is it tricky? Do you need to decompress a little first, or how does that pan out?
Well, to me, it's a big shock. You come back from camp and you've just been going on with it and you've been concentrating yourself, and you come back and you're like, what's going on, Ton? And then you're like, okay, the school, you know what time you have to drop them at school and pick them up, but there's other stuff going on. And I'm like turning up and you're like, should I be picking them up from here? No. And it's difficult. Honestly, it's like, to me, it's like, it's more hard than running. I'd rather just go out and just run and do so much mileage and just concentrate on yourself and, do what you can.
Can we say parenthood is harder than winning a gold medal?
It is in a way, because again, the kids, with our kids, each one of them has different thing going on, and you staying on top of it, and I'm not as much, as I say, like, we're not as detailed as to what they need, and Tanya is very detailed and she knows, and everything's planned, and I couldn't do that. I'm like, this is stressing me.
Which is ironic, seeing as everything in your lives is so routine-led and so scheduled and so well thought through and planned through and strategized, and tactics are all part of that and everything else. And so you two should absolutely be able to relate that to a children's day.
We're only in charge of ourselves, and that's all. When you're elite, it's different, and our mind, I think, works differently too, in terms of, because Ben, like, to be the best, this is what it needs, and you work down from there. You go, okay, this is the race, that's where I'm going to be peaking, and then you work down, and then it's a schedule, and you do one race and you're like, I'm missing this little things, what can and you keep changing. And tactically, if you get it wrong in a race, you're like, I know what I did wrong. I'm going to try something different. And you're not afraid to try something different. But that's all we know, not this parenting. And the kids.
I think you're always learning as a parent, aren't you? It's never a foregone conclusion, any of it.
Too true.
No.
So what happens next? You're spending a lot of time at home at the minute. So what does that mean? Does that mean that you're sort of starting? We talk a lot about, right, when is enough? Because we've done a lot of this traveling thing. We've done a lot of this separation thing as a family. When are you finally going to go, you're done with this bit and you're moving on to the next chapter of your life? And we talk about
what does that
all
involve?
the time.
Retiring or just normal?
Just I think it is that kind of, for a sportsman, it must be incredibly hard calling time on something that has been everything to you, has been your entire world, and such an intense world for such a long period of time. And I think that, that manifests itself in lots of different ways. And I think it's important, isn't it, to know what comes next after that, so that there isn't this hole. But we talk about it an awful lot, because I'm constantly saying, when is this going to end? And I don't know about you two. How do those discussions go in your household? I mean, are you thinking? You must be thinking. I mean, Mo, are you 40 this year?
40,
I think you're 40 this year. You must be thinking, right? when is enough? You've achieved so much. What more is left to achieve?
I don't think there's any more to be achieved at that high level. As I said, to have 4 Olympic gold medals, World Championship. For me, as I said, one thing, if I had to add in my bucket list, where you go, what's that one thing you would do and stop, would be to win the London Marathon. Always my key was, having taken part in the mini marathon. London Marathon was always like, that's the one I would love to win. And I did finish third. But then again, you have to be honest with yourself and honest with your body. And as we're getting on a bit, our body is not capable of what it was doing beforehand, because it's just, you're getting on and you're getting a little more niggles, a little more injuries. So it all depends on the body. But for me, if I had a good run and if you say to me, okay, this is it, you go and compete one marathon, and if that was the result, I got mic drop, I'm out.
So are we saying that London in April, the marathon in April, has returned to its usual spot in April. Are you all guns blazing for that?
No, I think it all just depends on how the body is. It's just taking one step at a time and try and get yourself in decent shape, and then and from that. But I think this has probably been my last year overall, really being realistic and being honest.
I hope so.
Yeah, hope so. Retire now. No.
I mean, but Tania, do you have those same conversations that I have with Ben, with Mo, which is like, come on now, we've had this absolutely incredible run. It's been a fabulous, haul, and now it's time for the next bit.
We've had that conversation many times over the years, and I've been ready for this for probably 5 years plus. I thought after Rio, he would probably run another year or two. And he said that London 2017, the World Championships, would be his last track race. And so I took that as, okay, maybe another year after that. And here we are in 2023, and he's still talking about potentially doing the London Marathon. And I've said to him, at what point are you going to even set in your mind a time period or a last race? You need to be realistic. And for me, I think there is no perfect ending. Some people might have that. Some sports people might, but quite often it doesn't maybe end the way you think it will. And you've got to be realistic, which he is now. But to be honest, I feel like we've got to the point where it's already, he's achieved everything. So, whatever he does now is a bonus. There is nothing left to prove. And the thought of him having to go away again as well for another training camp is just... it's not sitting well with me, to be honest.
Don't remember the doghouse. With me, Ben?
You drag it out, Mo. You're a long time retired. I'm with you, mate. Just keep going.
Don't encourage him, please.
Honestly, I know. It sounds like you have very similar conversations to the ones that we have. I mean, I suppose that's the thing about athletes of nowadays, you look after yourselves, you maintain your bodies to such a degree that actually you really can eke it out for a few more years than probably, previously thought. You look at, various people like Tom Brady out there still doing it, this, that, and the other. And like you say, I think, Tania, it's true. There's no perfect end to this story, because even if you went out on a total high, you'd ask yourself if you were going out too early. So I don't ever think I don't ever think there is a perfect time. I think that's probably the case. Do you feel that way? Do you feel that way?
I'm sure. I mean, it's hard because I'm sure it's the same for Mo. It's for me. You know what you want to try and achieve, and I'm sure you'll know when the time's right, Mo. And it's very hard to say so far in a distance. Well, this is it. This is the timeline, because so much can change.
Well, I guess if your body though is breaking. So we interviewed Sam Warburton for season 2 of our podcast, and he said he'd had just so many operations and so many injuries, and his body just couldn't. He was bouncing on the trampoline with his daughter, and he just couldn't bounce on his knees. Yeah. He was in so much pain, and he just called his wife and said, "That's it. I cannot do this any longer." So I guess if your body won't allow you, then that's already made the decision for you in a way, which I suspect is an easier call to make than actually if your body will still allow you, right?
Yeah. And I think, again, it's just with distance, as I said, like last couple of years, hasn't been a smooth ride, where, you've gone, keep piling up the miles and you keep running. It's been stop-start. And that makes it even more harder. So for me, probably last year, if I didn't get injured before the marathon, I probably would have called it. That would have been it. But then training's all gone well, and then just 2 weeks before you got injured, you're like, oh God, and then rest up, and then slowly coming back now, and I just feel like, where I was last year, I feel like there's still more. But again, it's just being honest and see how the body is. Again, if my body's okay, then we'll definitely will be it. Because in my mind, I'm like, well, I don't want to keep going to Paris 2024, because I feel like, with what I achieved over the years, I could give back to the younger athletes and maybe even, as a coach or as a mentor, or just help them get through it. Because I think there's a lot of athletes who will go into the Olympics putting themselves in so much pressure, which they don't need to. And I think with my skills and what we've learned over the years, there's so much more you can help with others. And I think if I know I'm helping others, then that still gives me that drive and that feel good.
That sounds sensible, Mo. Let's do that. Tania's going, yes, please.
In terms of legacy, is that where you see yourself going, Mo, and Tania as well? Do you guys have a plan of what that looks like, sort of post competition?
No, not really. I mean, I want to be able to catch up. I say more like Mo and us as a family, catch up on a lot of the time that we lost over the last 10 or so years. And for me, a perfect sort of transition would be to spend at least a year just being a normal family that are together all the time and do things as a normal family would, which is something that we've lacked pretty much since the kids were born. And then beyond that, I don't know. I think
always, as long as we're here for Arsenal games, it's fine. We've got a season to get Arsenal.
That's right.
No, Mo,
get that season ticket.
The next chapter, it's Tania's choice, right?
Yeah, I've already started doing things for myself more so in the last year. I'm doing a degree. I wouldn't have been able to do that before when Mo was away, because I just didn't have the time, and I run a lot more myself now as well. So I'm doing more things for myself now that I'm able to. But that being said, I'm always prepared to take a step back and put, if Mo's doing a race, then I'll have to put that first, because I always knew that at some point his running will be over, and then I'll be able to catch up on things that I missed. So yeah, I've got lots of things that I want to do, and I'm planning to do them when it's all over.
No pressure.
What are you studying, Tania? It's great to hear you back at school. What are you studying?
Oh, wow.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm fascinated by
that.
Psychology.
That is a mic drop, isn't it?
I thought about
Wow,
doing
that's
sports
impressive.
psychology because I understand it so much through being with Mo, but I just felt like it was I don't know, too easy almost. I wanted to do I'm fascinated by also forensic psychology, the sort of criminal mindset and the mindset of how the brain works. And so I've wanted to do it for a long time, but never had the chance. I'm in my 3rd year now. So I'm hoping that I can go down that path.
Yeah, good on you.
Yeah.
Wow.
What about
Wow.
me, eh? Just keep running, Mo.
So Mo, might you go and I think I read something somewhere that you wanted to go and coach at Arsenal. Do you want to go and do that, or are you focused on track and field?
Not anything in sports. I'm a massive fan of football. Obviously, I wouldn't have the understanding that I do in running, but again, it all comes in again. With sports. For me, I'd love to be involved in sports, and if it means teams or clubs or I think there's so much we learn over the years. How you can get yourself into from here, being here to here, and it's not about 1 year where you go, I'm here, jump. But it's all about the grafting, the work, and keep piling it in. And I think we do. There's a lot of areas that I see. I was thinking, a lot of even in football teams and other stuff, or athletes are struggling through that. So I feel like I love to be involved that way. That project where you go from here to see what we can produce.
So before we let you go, this podcast is called Performance People. So I'm going to ask you each for a performance tip that people can employ in their lives on a daily basis that will make them perform a little bit better. So Tania, how about you go first? What do you think is a brilliant performance tip that people can take away and employ in their everyday lives?
Well, I think consistency and hard work. I know that's something that probably most people have heard before, but it really is the underlying key to performing well in anything. And I've learned that through running and even my studies as well, that you have to work hard on a consistent basis and be disciplined, but also take the pressure off. Don't put as much pressure on yourself, because the pressure we feel most often is put on by ourselves. It's not you have the ability to control how you feel and how you perceive something, and pressure makes a huge difference. So I think if you take pressure off and don't tell yourself that what you're doing is super crucial or the be all and end all, for me that's helped me perform better in what I do.
And Mo, how about you?
I think whatever you do, just enjoy it and believe in it. And I think often, as I said, sometimes we're always trying to please or do certain things to make other people happy. Just do it for you, and if whatever that means. And as long as you put in 110% and you tried your best, that's what counts. And I think, and don't be afraid to make mistakes and stuff, because we will. As I said, even for ourselves, we're learning. We will make mistakes, and you don't always have to be perfect and get things perfect always. Yeah, it's good to get it perfect and set yourself a target. You get to that, but don't think you're going to get that target straight away. Just keep taking step forwards, and then when you're there, go, okay, I've done that. What's next again?
That's a bit like what Ben often says to our daughter. It's okay to lose, just don't make a habit of it.
Sort of.
When you get set of twins, you're like, I beat her. Yeah, but you can. That's to come.
Yeah. That's wonderful. Thank you.
Guys, thanks so much. It's been really lovely to chat to you. Thank you. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
I keep going, man. When we do retire, we get together. When we do retire.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that'd be really nice.
Get
Just not in a running race, Mo.
What are you talking about? Well, now we know.
Well, actually, now we know he's not any good at sprinting. It's fine.
Yeah, we're up for the dad's race. So that was, I thought that was quite intense in a good way, but I mean, what a story for both Mo and Tania. But I guess for me, the big thing takeaway was just Mo had to believe in it and enjoying what he was doing ultimately in the end. which gave him, that passion to come through. But what was your takeaway from it?
I think it was that bit about both him and Tania were in agreement, I think, on the fact that if it hadn't have been for his backstory and all the adversity he faced as a child that was trafficked to the UK at that early age, who knows whether he would have gone on to achieve all the things that he did. Because clearly he believes, and Tania believes, that the person he is today is because of the person that he was as a youngster too, and the experiences he had at that early age. So I mean, who knows whether that is all part of what makes Mo Farah the Olympic champion.
I think it is, isn't it? It's all part of it. Absolutely.
I think it must be. The other bit that really stood out was Tania talking about consistency and hard work as the two things that she really, has said are the key to performing brilliantly. And I think that is very relevant to Mo, isn't it? You can see that, in everything he does. It's all about consistency and hard work.
Yeah, it has to be in that sport in particular.
120 miles a week in training he runs. I mean, that is just mind-boggling,
Yeah, it's
isn't it?
phenomenal.
Thank you for listening and or watching. This has been Performance People, and we are Georgie and Ben Ainsley. And remember, from what we've learned today, consistency and hard work definitely add up to success and performance.